We have a Crate BX15, just a small little bass amp here that we want to troubleshoot. The problem is we've got no sound at all coming from it. So turn the volume up, power's on, bass is connected to it, but there's no sound coming out of it. So we're going to troubleshoot and try to repair this bass amp. See, from the amp, there was 4 screws holding it in that we've removed. 2 of them go down through the handle of the amplifier. But anyway, now we have it laying on its face, and the chassis sitting up here with the speaker wire still connected. And I'm going to carefully plug this up and power this up, being careful not to touch any parts that might have voltage on them. So I've got it plugged up, and I turned the power on. And I'm going to plug my bass back into the input jack. We're going to try to see, we're going to check a couple of common things that go bad on amps. Still no sound. Pots are turned up, the volumes and the volume on the bass, so we should be getting a sound. First I'm going to look at the input jack. It seems, I'm going to wiggle it around a little bit while I play it. No change. We'll go down to this headphone jack here, and I'm going to press each of these contacts closed as I play it, because these sometimes become dirty or bent, and then if they're not closed they won't play. So now we're going to try the, and that is actually an external speaker jack. And as you can see here, this contact has become bent. It's supposed to normally be closed when there's not a plug plugged into that jack, and it's become bent. So that's the problem. And we're not going to be able to bend that back down. We're going to have to replace this jack to make the amp function. So that's what we'll do next. Amp unplugged. What we're going to do is to take this circuit board out of the chassis. First of all, we'll take the jack nuts off, each of the knobs. Then there's a little nylon piece back here that's actually holds the board in, that you need to squeeze it because it's got a couple of ears that hold the board down. Squeeze it and pull the board up and it pops up. Now we should be able to hopefully slide this board back out of here. Tip it up and flip it up, and this is the jack that we want to replace right here. So we're going to unsolder each of the connection points of this jack, remove this, and put in another one. So we got our solder station here. Hopefully it's hot enough. May not be completely warm yet. Whoops.
Edit that out.
Heat up each of these points one at a time. Pull the solder out of them. And see if the jack will pry out of there, which it does. So we need a jack that looks like this to replace it with. It has these little L-shaped legs on it. It looks like this one that we have will work. So pop the new one in and grab a piece of solder here. Okay, soldering the final points here. Go back and add a little bit to this. Okay, so we got 4 good joints there. While we've got it apart, we'll look at all these other connectors to make sure that the solder looks good on them. Also the pots. We'll look at the connection points for each of the pots. And generally just look over the entire board to see if there's any solder connections that seem to be breaking down, and they look good, so we should have a new jack in there that should work good, and we're ready to reassemble. Get all these pots to feed back through the panel. Here we go. Then I'm going to snap it back down on this holder here. Put the jack nuts back on. We should be ready to test it, so I'll plug it back up. Get the base here. Oops, I left one of the jack nuts off. We'll get the knots and the knobs in a minute. Plug the base in. Turn the power on. So it works. Now all we have to do is put the knobs back on it and the chassis back in the case and give it a final test, and we're ready to go. There's always one. There we go. Okay, we got it powered back up and it works. So, the very common problem with amps of all kinds are the jacks. So this is a case where we were able to replace the jack and make it work again. Another breakdown point sometimes is the input jack. It might become erratic and you might be able to move the input jack around and have the signal come and go. But as you can see, it's pretty easy to replace the jack on some of these amps, and you may be able to get your amp going again.